everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. This is going to be the astro weather for the week of April 6th through the 13th, 2025. I hope you guys are well. Back at it with your weekly dose of what's going on in the cosmos. We're going to be talking all about the lunar transits and how to plan the week ahead. And we're going to be putting a special emphasis on finally Venus turning direct in the sign of Pisces. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, definitely subscribe to the channel, click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm always here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, utilizing tarot, astrology, the Sabian symbols, and whatever we can use to figure out what is going on in the cosmos. Wow, guys, this is a big week. So I feel like finally, it feels like March is like behind us. We're out of eclipse season. We're actually going to see so many planets that are really coming back online this week. So we're going to start to feel like finally 2025 is beginning. So I'm excited to see what's happening. It's definitely going to be a little bit of a ride when it comes to getting these planets to go direct and wake up. But essentially, in terms of the lunar transits this week, we're going to kind of kick the week off with the moon in Leo. It's fiery, it's feisty. It's going to shift into Virgo, which is definitely going to help us ground out stuff a little bit more, focus on precision. And then we are going to see, obviously, this peak with a very karmic full moon in Libra. And the week's going to end with the moon taking a deep dive into Scorpio's intensities. So you got any planets that are in those signs, just pay attention. But the big news is that both Mercury and Venus will be turning direct. So this means that the Mercury retrograde will be over, the Venus retrograde will be over. However, we know that when planets go direct, it takes a little bit of time for them to wake up and start moving forward. Now, Mars is also going to be stirring some emotional currents this week. We'll talk about that, how that's kind of the setup by the end of this week, where we're going to start seeing Mars finish up its tour in Cancer, and it's going to be returning to Leo. So at least it'll be action-packed, but we might start to feel with that moon in Scorpio this week, the intensity of Mars building back into an opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. More towards the end of April, but still some of you guys are going to feel that if you're a little bit more astrologically sensitive. But yeah, Venus, stationing direct is a big deal. Since the beginning of March, we've seen this retrograde taking place. It started in Aries, it retrograded back into Pisces. There has been this very karmic dance where, Venus has been conjunct Saturn as well as the North Node. So when we see the full moon in Libra come in on the 12th, this is going to kind of kick off all of the finale of the Venus retrograde, what lessons we've learned, what we've ended, what's worked, what hasn't worked, where we have been delusional when it comes to love, relationships, money, values, right? All of these kind of Venus things. So this Venus shift, I think, is a game changer. I feel like this can be a time where finally we feel like we're kind of breaking through what has been some blockages. And maybe we're feeling like we are unlocking love, making big changes in our value system. There is some kind of spiritual alignment as Venus is kind of connect Saturn as well as the North Node in the sign of Pisces. So it's very dreamy, very romantic, and it's all going to feel amplified because Libra is all about relations. So I think that a lot of relationships actually, after going through this chaotic time, can have a bit of a glow up. So what am I expecting? Well, simply some faded moments, obviously some emotional breakthroughs. We're also going to see a finger of fate aspect that's going to be pointing us towards our destiny this week. You got to kind of be quick to catch it, but we're going to talk about it. And like I said, by the end of the week, we start to feel those Mars-Pluto tensions start to kind of come back up to the surface. These are oppositions that kind of go all the way back to the fall of 2024 when we saw the Mars-Pluto opposition in Cancer in Capricorn in November, and we saw an opposition in Leo and Aquarius in January. So definitely some drama brewing. You may not have to deal with it till the end of April, later this month. Yeah, let's go ahead and break this down. We're going to go day by day. And as you guys know, I like to focus on one transit per week. So I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on the Venus-Saturn conjunction, the fact that Venus is going direct. So if you guys have not seen any of the other videos, I have put out a Venus in Aries, a Venus in Pisces, the retrograde video. I did a webinar. There's been so much information. So you can go back and you can kind of follow the storyline of when Venus actually came into Pisces and was in conjunction to Saturn right around the end of January 2025, the beginning of February 2025. Why is this important? Well, this is right around the time that Venus was getting ready to go into shadow. So it was the pre-shadow before we saw the retrograde. Venus-Saturn connections obviously represent kind of boundaries, limitations, karmic turning points. So there are things that have been kind of going down personally in our own lives with relationship style, money, values, but also globally, as Pisces is a global sign when it comes to global or international relationships, trades, right? Allies, anything in regards to the markets, as Venus also rules over money. So we're going to start to really see really the fruit or the big kind of conclusions or the shocking surprises about just what direction financially things are going in. But Venus stations direct at 24 degrees. So if you have anything around like that 22 to 26 degrees of Pisces, a personal planet, a sun, moon, rising, right? This is going to be pretty personal for you. I actually think it's great because it's coming back online. So it's going to be, I think, more about our external relationships versus our internal kind of reassessment. It might be an extended period of blessings for some of you guys where Venus can actually bring better relationships, more harmony, a balancing of the scales. And obviously it can bring some kind of wealth or abundance. Beauty, pleasure is very much Venus. So make sure you check your chart and see if you have anything there. Equally, if you're ruled by Venus, so if you're a Taurus rising or a Libra rising, you guys are going to be feeling Venus come back online. And I think those of you guys who have felt like you're kind of going through the trenches, things are going to get a little bit easier from this point forward. But still, it's going to be conjunct Saturn. So on April 12th, we see Venus go direct. She ends her retrograde, and it's going to be in conjunction to Saturn as well as the North Node. Now, it's interesting to me that we have this full moon in Libra. Right after the full moon, boom, Venus conjunct Saturn. And this is really, I feel like, kind of like it's like a celestial, like mic drop moment. And it's significant for a number of reasons. One is that when we have the end of a retrograde, it is now time for us to go, okay, we have been reassessing, we have been reevaluating, maybe we have returned, maybe there has been a process where we feel like we've been going back and forth or kind of bobbing and weaving, especially with Mercury involved. So now that Venus is completing her retrograde, it means that we're going to be less introspective about these topics. We're going to be less kind of self-consumed or maybe feeling like we're not getting enough love or we're not experiencing enough pleasure. It can definitely turn things around when it comes to money as well as self-esteem or self-worth. Now, Venus in Pisces, she's in her exalted sign, so she is very happy being in this sign, even in spite of, being in a retrograde. Trust me, it's a lot easier than having it in Aries. And I feel like this is where she's kind of like emerging from what has been several weeks of going through a soul-searching process. And really, this has been all about compassion. This has been about creativity and kind of realizing or recognizing some of our spiritual depths, what sacrifices we need to make, what we need to kind of give up, where we've been kind of hiding out from our path or our purpose. So under this full moon in Libra, I feel like it's definitely giving us, like I said, the green light now to really be able to move forward with whatever has been brewing, especially in relationships. Libra is about relationships. So when I say relationships, it doesn't just mean boyfriend, girlfriend, spouses. This could be, you make a big decision about a relationship with a friendship or a business partner or a client. It could also be a time where there is this reassessment as to whether or not you're getting what you need from other people and if you're showing up and being a team player. Now, the full moon's going to amplify this. That full moon will be at 23 degrees. The station is going to be within 2 degrees. So the full moon will be at 23 of Libra. And I think that this is really, Libra full moons, it's going to put a spotlight on balance. It's going to be whether or not we are harmonizing with other people. It does highlight partnerships. And I feel like it's syncing up very nicely with Venus and Pisces because it's blending this very unconditional love energy of Pisces with Libra's constant quest for balance and fairness. So it's definitely a moment of like karmic resolution. So, now we can feel like, okay, finally we can heal some of these old wounds. If there has been any hidden desires, they may surface, especially in the sign of Pisces. And we can find that some connections can actually realign and we can forgive, we can heal, we can work through things. during this particular lunation, we're going to see a finger of fate. We're going to see a yod, and that's going to be taking place between Venus and Pisces, as well as Saturn and Pisces, and Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So we've got a lot of like Libra, Taurus energy with Venus, and these are all signs that either are at home with Venus or are exalted. So this is adding like a bit of like a fated twist, I think. It's really kind of pointing to the moon as being like, hey, we have to have total transparency, total clarity, the willingness sometimes to make sacrifices. And we're going to see who or what is going to show up to support us. So it's definitely going to be a pivotal release point with the moon being in that particular angle. Now, that conjunction to the North Node, not just Saturn, is significant as well because, this is really, I think, Saturn's going to ground out some of the more kind of confusing or, maybe demystify some of the issues revolving around relationships or money. And it's also going to be about really solidifying long-lasting commitments. Saturn can be the glue that can kind of keep, Venus around, and it can be really significant commitment. So I see turning points where people decide, okay, we're going to move in together. We're going to start a business together. We're going to get engaged. We're going to get married. But also it can mean here's the boundary. Here's the line. This is no longer working. So definitely soul contracts kind of come up to mind for me with Venus conjunct Saturn in the North Node. It could also mean that you were getting a little bit more serious about our creative pursuits with that particular conjunction. Now, that North Node really ties it to destiny. It's about our dharma, where we're going, what we're here to achieve collectively. So it's suggesting that these shifts aren't necessarily just personal, which is so cool considering Libra wants to be a part of like a partnership, right? So we see that the full moon comes in, Venus is conjunct the North Node in Saturn, and that basically means that there is a bigger story at play. There is something much bigger about what everybody is going through collectively, a really significant spiritual journey where we are on the quest to figure out just exactly what matters to us the most. What are we putting value in? Expect some really big plot twists, I think, in regards to financial systems and banking, laws, legislation, regulations revolving around some of this stuff as well, as it's going to be conjunct Saturn. So there is something serious in regards to, organization of businesses, anything in regards to financial situations or institutions with the sextile to Uranus. And I think that, under this full moon, we're all going to be trying to kind of find our equilibrium. And this is going to be between giving and receiving, but also between dreaming and doing. So there is going to be this balance between that as well. Now, why does this matter, right? It matters because this is a very rare alignment. So to see all of these planets aligning together in the sign of Pisces with Venus, which is the heart, we've got Saturn, which is about duty, and obviously fate, which is the North Node, all being supercharged by this full moon, that is going to be the relational kind of focus or release. So, you might feel like there is a major breakthrough in your love life this week, a financial turning point, or a creative rebirth, especially if you've been wrestling with like illusions or sacrifices in your life recently. It's very tender, so that's something to keep in mind. Pisces is a water sign, and it's very sensitive and very emotional and empathic, and so karmic with these conjunctions. If you guys stay tuned to the end of the video, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs. We'll do a quick review about where Venus has been retrograde. I'm going to let you know where it's going to go direct and what I think might happen. Now, this is going to be, obviously, like I said, for April 6th through the 13th, 2025. So if you guys are watching on Sunday the 6th, happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. Hope you guys are well. We're waking up this morning and the moon is in Leo. So it'll be here for a couple days. When the moon is in Leo, we feel like we want to be bold, creative, romantic. We want to have fun. We want to play. We want to focus on our hobbies, our romantic partners, even our kids. Like there is a sense of just wanting to have a good time. Now, first thing this morning, though, something that some of you guys, if you're early birds, you're going to feel is that the moon has actually been in opposition to Pluto. I'm here in Central Time, so it's going to be around 7 a.m. So it'll be closer to around 5 a.m. on the Pacific Coast and 8 a.m. on the Eastern. I know we have people all over the place, so you might have to adjust your time zones, but very early in the morning, we feel a little bit of that intensity from that opposition to Pluto. Something else that we're also seeing is that the moon is starting to come out of a trine from Neptune in Aries. That's weird saying that now, Neptune in Aries. Still getting used to it. And we are going to see that Mercury is still retrograde and it's coming into conjunction with Saturn again. Okay, so it's conjuncting Venus and Saturn. So there still is this sense of rearranging the heart and mind, right? Like when we see Mercury retrograde, there's misunderstandings, miscommunications, reassessments. In the sign of Pisces, do I say something? Do I not? Do I communicate? Do I not? How do I find the words? And then it's got that conjunction to Venus, which is the heart. So it's kind of like it's a triple threat, I think, between the Mercury retrograde, the Mercury conjunct Venus, and then the Venus retrograde conjunct Saturn. It's like, these are some really big defining moments that are happening before these two planets go direct. Dreams, insanity. I've heard you guys talking about it. I've seen it in the comments. I've been experiencing it. It is so like bizarro world. Some of the things that are getting like taken care of and cleaned up on the ethers. I have found myself like talking to clients and they've been telling me some wild stories about being like, I just had this feeling I was going to run into somebody and after 20 years I did, or I had a dream that I got a call and I, got the job and I had to move across the country and then I got the call. Crazy things. And usually, when we see anything that's retrograde in Pisces, we're having to work extra internal. Retrogrades are about going within, but this in particular, I feel like is so incredibly confusing on the earthly plane that the only thing that makes sense is sleeping, resting, dreaming, journaling, meditating, anything that's just going to be about really kind of getting in touch with the subconscious. So still a lot of stuff in the air. This is a pretty potent conjunction between the North Node, Venus, Saturn, and Mercury. Certainly I could see, especially if you're somebody who's Mercury ruled, so my Geminis and my Virgos, if you're somebody Venus ruled, my Tauruses and my Libras, you guys are probably still feeling the heat of it. There is this sense of, do I stay or do I go? What do I do? Which way is it going to fall? And that will get easier as the week kind of goes on. Just kind of expect that, I think, with, the Leo moon's trine to Neptune early in the morning. Maybe you were feeling the beginning of that on Saturday night last night. This is about really igniting a creative spark. This is about tapping into your own personal vision. This is about being bold, dynamic, action-oriented. The challenge here is that the moon in opposition to Pluto is definitely bringing up some power struggles. And these power struggles could be what's going to make me happy versus what makes other people happy. And, what am I doing for me? And, my creativity, my joy, my self-love versus what other people want. And Leo is inherently about life. It's about sunshine, right? It's about basically, being able to kind of live out our heart's desire versus Aquarius, which can be very much about the opposite of the individual. It's going to be about the collective, but in a way that's more future kind of minded. It's going to also be much more abstract. And obviously, Pluto and Aquarius is very doom and gloom. So watch out for getting sucked into the doom and gloom stuff early on Sunday morning. If you guys are listening to the news, you're reading headlines, yes, some of that stuff's going to come up. It's also probably going to be about people's I think kind of like trepidation going into Monday morning and seeing what's kind of happening in the markets, because Leo deals with anything speculative, and the opposition to Pluto can be about people that are like, oh my God, depending on how things closed on Friday, what's going to happen on Monday? So I do think that with the Venus retrograde that's still kind of in the last moments, that connection with Saturn and Mercury, it's setting the stage for the upcoming shift, and it's definitely deepening emotional reflection. So even though we have, the moon in a fire sign, the sun in a fire sign, which is very get up and go, there is still a very heavy, emotionally trying, needing to have your own time, your own space, reflective period. So not everybody is going to feel like they want to get out and socialize and, be out and doing things on Sunday. So just kind of keep that in mind. I think the theme really for Monday is that, it's about passionate dreams and kind of wrestling with transformative tension. Lots of passion, lots of dreams, wanting to get out there, be active, bold, and dynamic, but also feeling a little freaked out about the future. So no future tripping on Sunday, okay? Get some time in the sun, obviously. While we look at the moon in Leo, we're looking at what's going on with the sun. The sun's not really making any aspects to the moon yet. You're going to see that more kind of going into Monday. And the sun is going to be approaching a conjunction to Chiron, which is going to put a theme really on self-healing all week. Or identity wounds, or where I stand out, or where I'm different, or what I'm healing. So work with heat. I always laugh when I see your guys' comments. Somebody last week was like, you said that, and I was grabbing a heating pad, right? But this could also be red light therapy, going to a sauna, it could be just laying out on a lawn chair, going to the beach. Any of these things that's going to help with circulation and also really be focusing on physical wellness. That's really what Chiron and Aries is going to be about. All right, so this is going to take us through the day. So you guys will see these aspects kind of set up as I go. We're not going to see too much happening. It looks like as we're getting into the evening hours, the moon is starting to come into a sextile with Jupiter, but you're actually going to see more of that going into early morning on Monday. So let's keep things rolling here. Venus also is now conjunct Saturn by degree. So that's going to be hanging out for like a week. So let's take a look. Now we're waking up on April 7th, which is going to be Monday. And the moon is going to be in a sextile first thing in the morning to Jupiter, coming into a trine with the sun. We like the days the moon and the sun trine because we're feeling like actions and our ego or our focus, our career, our drive, especially with the sun in Aries, is in flow. So I love to see the sun in the moon in a lunar sign trining the sun. Good stuff. The other thing that we're going to be seeing that's going to be happening here is there's going to be that trine. Venus is now conjunct Saturn exactly at 25, and Mercury is now direct on Monday morning. So Mercury retrograde is over. Mercury is going to be direct at 26 degrees. So I'm sure my Geminis, my Virgos, my Pisces are all going to rejoice with that being over. And we're also going to see later in the day, the moon will trine Chiron, which is great for art therapy, art healing, being creative, crafting, doing anything that's going to be hobby related. That is going to be expressive and fun. And then towards the later evening, we're going to start to see the moon come into a square with Uranus. But to me, this is a really decent Monday. I feel like with Mercury going direct, we can communicate better. We do see Mercury still in Pisces, so we have to be mindful that Mercury's still a little sleepy. As he wakes up, he's kind of still hitting the snooze button. But I think things are actually going to flow very nicely. I see a lot of like positive communication opportunities on Monday. So with that Leo moon kind of like aligning with the sun and Chiron, I feel like this is also like, healing confidence issues. If you have felt that you've been lacking confidence or you don't know how to put yourself out there or how to be vulnerable or how to take a chance, that's something you might do on Monday. Venus conjunct Saturn, even in spite of Venus still being retrograde, this is the whole focus here is locking in commitments. So with that happening with Mercury going direct, it's like, okay, now we can actually start talking about, do we move forward? Do we sign the contract? Is it the right time? And with Mercury direct, the fog is going to now start to kind of dissipate. Just watch for the moon square Uranus. That can give us a little bit of like a jolt, which can be shocking and surprising later in the day. Now that is going to be happening in the later hours, but it's going to be starting to build as we're getting into like right around dinner time. So what's interesting is that moon will trine Chiron. So definitely focusing on kind of squeezing in some fun, creativity, some romance, maybe to kind of boost our confidence. But the moon is going to start to square Uranus, where there can definitely be some tension revolving around values and pride, money and creativity, finances and children, that kind of stuff. And for some of you guys, it's going to be rather late that this square is happening. You may already be asleep. So if you are, then you're going to get a little bit of like a pass on that. And that's going to take us into Tuesday, which will be the 8th. On the 8th, we're going to see when we wake up, the moon is very early in the morning, it's in Leo, but it's going to spend most of the day in Virgo. So it will ingress. This basically means that now that we're looking at Virgo moon, we're going to be focusing on Mercury. And there is some Mercury stuff that's going to be happening. So communication is both important and a little tricky midweek. That's something that you guys need to know. So when the moon goes into Virgo, there is a focus on fixing things, putting things in order, focusing on our health, our pets, our coworkers. We want to be busy. We want to get stuff done. And it's also about emotional care and emotional health. We might notice that maybe there is much more of an emphasis on, work for whatever reason, or a schedule, or maybe we're being a little bit more picky about how we like things around the house, or things kind of like emotionally. Now we will see Mercury direct now, and it's coming into a trine with Mars. What can I say about that? I mean, it's kind of happening the 7th going into the 8th, but you're going to feel it more now with Mercury there. Excuse me, with the moon in Virgo. So with Mercury and Mars in a trine, we're taking the mind and actions, and they're flowing together in a harmonious aspect. The trine is almost like a Jupiter energy. So on one hand, I feel like the Virgo moon is definitely going to sharpen our focus. But with Mercury trine Mars, it's really good for intuitive action, right? This isn't a water sign. This isn't a water sign. Obviously, both signs, are not the best hosts for Mars and Mercury. But if you want to use this day for a divination day, for listening to your gut, for paying attention to what your emotions are telling you, but by the same token, there can be a sense of us getting a little emotionally frazzled and feeling like we can be a little bit more defensive. Trines are not all trines are created equal. Mercury trine Mars is definitely a day where we can be more confident. In a water sign, maybe we're just like listening to our intuition more, but it can also represent where, we're much more likely to be a little bit more emotionally defensive, or we could be a little bit more crabby. Maybe it means that we're feeling a little bit more comfortable and confident now that Mercury is direct in kind of sharing our feelings or our emotions, or things that we have not wanted to say, things that we've been kind of holding back. Now we will see the moon come into an inconjunct with Pluto. So that's going to be a quick moving transit. Honestly, quincunx and inconjunctions, they're just about subtle adjustments. So there is this sense of being like, okay, what do we need to work on, clean up, or get in order? So that way we are able to actually make change for the future. Change can be a good thing. So many of these eclipses and retrogrades, which started in Aries, were the precursor for Neptune and then inevitably Saturn coming into Aries. And I was listening to somebody say something this week, which was really interesting. They were saying, whenever you're like ready to make a change and you get like that fear, that wave of fear that comes over, that's like, ooh, what am I doing? Like, what's going to happen? Like, is this going to be a good idea? That hesitation can be a good thing. That can be something that is teaching you that you're getting out of your comfort zone. That can be something that can also encourage you to move forward and be brave and do something that you haven't done before. That just because you haven't gone somewhere, you haven't done something, you haven't taken a chance in a certain area of your life, that feeling doesn't mean that you should stop. It means that you're actually growing. And you guys are going to notice this a lot more over the next 2 or 3 months as Mercury, as Venus come back into Aries, as Saturn comes into Aries as well. Granted, we have to kind of ground our visions and dreams in reality, but we'll talk about that plenty over the next couple of weeks. Just know that with Venus, kind of coming near her station direct degree, this is really stirring anticipation. What is going to happen? Which way is this going to go? It almost feels like we're being left on a cliffhanger watching like The Bachelor or something, or plug in whatever your favorite kind of toxic reality relationship show is. Oh my God, do they know that they did this and this is going to happen? And who are they going to choose? That's how this feels to me. There's also a lot of like with planets being in Pisces, speculation. People can be like assuming things and speculating things. And then all of a sudden by the end of the week with both these planets direct, it's like there's going to be some grand unveiling of, well, this is where it's going to go. Remember, Saturn is about leadership. It's about, overseeing things. It's also going to be about boundaries and limitations. Venus is obviously about diplomacy and relations and relationships, while Mercury is going to be about negotiations and agreements. And this is a lot about meetings that are being had behind the scenes, getting ready to inform the public or tell people about just exactly what direction the economy is going in, just exactly what's happening with the strength of the dollar, what's happening with the global markets. And, Pisces can be a million things. It could be some major scandal and exposure of, some corruption of spending. It could also be some major turning point with things connecting to hospitals, prisons. But I think it's going to be, I've said all along for months, this is about global trade. This is about how we're realizing the impact of changes with relationships, allies, as well as tariffs, how that's not just impacting America, and I say that as an American, but how that's impacting the whole globe. So we're going to start to see things kind of shift. And yes, things are still slow, but by the time we get to the end of April going into May, the speed of everything is really going to kind of start to pick up. So watch for that stirring anticipation. You know, the theme really for Tuesday is going to be all about practical clarity. And this is also using that clarity of the Virgo moon, you know, to really flow with our intuition, to really focus on also where is our soul wanting to go? How do we find the words? How do we communicate that? How are we getting everything in order? All right, so we will see these transits play out throughout the day. Not too much that's going to be going on with the moon. I was more focused with Mercury, honestly, than anything. The moon is pretty unaspected other than that quincunx or inconjunct that you are going to be seeing to Pluto. But what's interesting is like, look, there's another yod sextile between Neptune and Pluto, and the moon is quincunx Neptune and it's quincunx Pluto. So when the moon goes through Virgo, we hear stuff about health. We hear things about habits, job numbers, stuff like that. And so this could be more in relation to health. It could be, you know, connecting to unions. It could be major changes revolving around, you know, job numbers, anything in regards also to public servants. And, you know, I'm wondering if there's going to be some interesting data that is released with Mercury going into, you know, it being direct in the conjunction to the North Node. So we'll see. Nothing else really kind of happening. So now this is going to take us into what will be Wednesday the 9th. And Wednesday morning, that moon is still in Virgo. And this is where things get a little kind of wonky communication-wise. Maybe not so much on Wednesday, but definitely on Thursday. So as the moon continues to keep going through Virgo, one of the first aspects it's going to make is it's going to make a square to Jupiter. So this can make us more emotionally, not on edge, but like things can feel more emotionally inflated. Like there can definitely be overly reacting to other people. There can also be like this sense of us kind of trying to stay focused and being kind of detail oriented. But when it squares Jupiter and Gemini, which will be later in the day, it can inflate ideas, right? It can also spark restlessness. So it's harder for us to stay on task. We are also going to see that moon start coming into an inconjunct or a quincunx with the Sun and Chiron. So this is definitely a day that's like, whoa, we want to be paying attention to what's going on with our health, what's going on with our schedule, with our habits. Equally, because Mercury is the ruler of the moon or the dispositor, and it's still in conjunction to the North Node, it's still in conjunction to Saturn. This is like us trying to get serious and like get clarity or, you know, sign contracts, make commitments, and people are going to get frustrated because they're going to be like, why are they taking so long to respond to my email? Why haven't I heard back from them? Why did they ghost? And we're going to feel really kind of squirrely, I think, on Wednesday night, and we're going to be feeling like we need to, you know, communicate or get something in order, and maybe we're sending a bunch of emails or phone calls, and we're not hearing back. Just watch for the restlessness, excuse me. Venus in Pisces, obviously continuing to build towards her direct moment. Still nothing is happening there. However, Venus, Saturn, you know, even Mercury are all sextile Uranus. So it's almost like I see the stellium as a bunch of people waiting around on eggshells, waiting to have something released, waiting to get verification for something, waiting to get the green light on something, and then boom, the impact that that has on trade, agriculture, food, property, real estate, you know. And for some of you guys, and I've said this several times throughout the last year, when we see transits through Pisces, sextile, and Uranus, it's like, you know, does your gut or your intuition tell you, hey, be prepared, you know, be ready to make a move or be ready to travel or be, you know, kind of having extra cash or something on standby? You know, some of you guys might continue to kind of feel some of those impacts with these conjunctions in Pisces. So basically on Wednesday, the theme here is that we are focusing on precision. We're trying to stay focused. We're trying to stay busy. But it's almost like the later we get in the day, there is so many expansive thoughts. There is almost too much multitasking that it's going to be harder and harder and harder for us to focus. So, you know, get into work early if you can on Wednesday. Try to get as much stuff as you can get done, because you're going to notice by the time you're getting to later in the day, later in the afternoon, or before you're wrapping up work, you're like, I am mentally fried, or there's just been too much communication, or people took all day to get back to me and now they're, calling me the last 15 minutes of, my shift or before I kind of clock out. And this can also mean with all of these planets in Pisces, squares from the moon to Jupiter, there's lots of weather stuff going on. Jupiter in Gemini could literally be tornadoes. It's about big winds. And as we see all these planets in Pisces, where you've got obviously a lot of moisture, you've also got a lot of cold fronts that can suddenly come in, fluctuations with the weather can create extreme events. So I am kind of seeing in some parts of the world, definitely on Wednesday and Thursday, those are some days that you guys want to be mindful of where there can be some weather changes. All right. Okay. Now this is going to take us into what is going to be the 10th, which will be Thursday. And Thursday morning, the moon is doing some things. So there's two ways to look at Thursday. I feel like Wednesday and Thursday is when communication becomes the most jumbled, right? If I were to focus on communication, I would be probably trying to do it on Monday, Tuesday, because it's going to get difficult towards the end of the week. The moon will be conjunct the south node. So we're having to recognize and kind of come to terms with what needs to go, what's not emotionally healthy, where there is unexpected schedule changes, where there's some changes with our coworkers or some changes maybe with our health or our habits. We need to be more in tune of what is and is not emotionally healthy. And I say that because Virgo is about health and service. It's also about where am I doing too much? Where am I sacrificing too much? And this is more about habits. And the ruler is in a sign that's more about sleep, mental health, drugs, drinking, pharmaceuticals, and this is a very confusing aspect. To see the moon conjunct the south node on Thursday, where we're more prone to mood swings and emotions and emotional endings and completions and conclusions, while it opposes, Mercury on the north node, which is about fateful conversations, information, communication. Granted, it's not clear. We are having a hard time believing it, or we're still waiting for all of the data to come in. Planets on the north node represent where we're going. Planets on the south node represent where we've been. And how interesting that the south node ruler is conjunct the north node. It means that there's likely going to be some public shock or surprise revolving around some information about what's being released or being let out or being leaked that has been private, or it has been something that has been getting ready to be reviewed. I've said all along, Mercury has been about, journalists because of the connection to Jupiter in Gemini, and because Mercury is about writers. And this retrograde has been about people breaking stories or coming out with stories and wanting to break them. And then we hear weird stuff like people are disappearing or people are getting fired or, unfortunately, trigger warning, people are unaliving themselves. We've seen it with journalists that are going missing or winding up dead. We've seen it with police officers and people in positions of power who are wildly winding up dead in weird, suspicious ways. This has been a really, really gnarly retrograde for that. Pisces is sometimes about, mental health issues and wanting to kind of free ourselves from the earthly plane, as much as I hate to say that, as is that north node Neptune. For a lot of people, issues with mental health, drinking, drugging come up. So is there going to be some significant exposure or scandal or something else revolving around one of these topics? Somebody prominent who's like a well-known anchor, or a well-known anchor, kind of peeling back the curtain and showing some information about some stuff. Perhaps this is going to be a pretty wild news day. It's also going to be really challenging because it's going to be still in a square to Jupiter. So it's going to say, hold on, there's two sides of a story, and Jupiter is ruling all of this Pisces. So I look at this and I'm like, definitely not the day to be trying to have meetings, trying to travel, trying to make sense of things. This is a day that's like, if your schedule falls apart, people cancel, if things change, it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to lose my mind over it? No, I'm just going to take some time to pause and reflect. Let's wait until the details kind of settle out. When Mercury gets back into Aries, when it's working its way away from Neptune and it's coming out of the shadow period, we're going to have more clarity. So try not to kind of do the Pisces doom spiral if there's job changes, health changes, things like that throughout this particular day. So We're going to also see the moon sextile Mars in Cancer, which is cool because the moon is associated with Mars, obviously. So it's like a little bit of emotional willpower and resilience, or the willingness to kind of get things done or get things organized or do some work around the house, can actually be therapeutic, while that moon is also coming into a trine with Uranus in Taurus. So a lot of like lunar things kind of happening. Mercury's conjunct the North Node. So this is also about really strong intuition, dreams, stuff coming to us that we're just kind of figuring out or realizing. It's interesting that it's at 27 because it's a Gemini degree. So it's about documents. It's about prominent Geminis, newscasters, journalists, information that's going to be kind of coming out, as that's what, Mercury is. Mercury and Jupiter have mutual reception right now. So there's something kind of going on that's like, yeah, there is two sides of the story. And like, which one are we going to be able to kind of believe? And there can be a lot of people reacting very strongly when you see Jupiter in a mercurial sign, Mercury in a Jupiter sign, and in the square, especially with the North Node involved. So putting it all together, positives is that, the moon coming into a trine with Uranus is perfect for doing something different, for innovating. Like I like Thursday for, finding new hacks to get things done, learning how to work smarter, not harder, changing our diet, changing our schedule. Maybe somebody does cancel a meeting and you're like, you know what, I'm going to, go home and meal prep, or I'm going to, use this as an opportunity maybe to, go for a walk in the park, or I'm going to go and do something that I don't usually have time to do, something that brings me peace. It brings me clarity. I don't want to go to the gym. I'm going to do laps in a pool, that kind of stuff. We're going to change it up a little bit. I think the, connection between the moon and the south node, watch for past lessons. And obviously that opposition to the Pisces stellium, it's tugging at emotions. Like you see the moon in opposition to Venus, something feels out of reach. It feels like we're not good enough, or we're not getting the support that we need, or that something is wrong. Moon in opposition to Saturn, emotional boundaries, blockages, feeling like something is being kept from us. Moon in opposition to Mercury, not being able to communicate and kind of relay our feelings. But I look at this and I'm like, man, actions speak louder than words, I think. I think that's really the lesson of the Mercury retrograde in Aries. I also think that sometimes no response is a response. Sometimes somebody not saying something it speaks volumes, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, if they wanted to, they would respond, they would connect. And also for some of us, it's like, do I really need to open that can of worms and have a conversation with somebody? Is it healthy to continue the back and forth? Like, am I asking questions to things I already know the answers to? I don't know if you guys have been feeling like that, but I've been feeling like that with some of the retrogrades in Pisces. It's been wild. All right. Mercury with the connection to the North Node. This is about tying words to fate. It's about listening to your gut and also paying attention to your emotions. All this stuff is still trine Mars, guys. So our emotions are trying to tell us something that needs to be dealt with. Now, we will see the moon kind of do its opposition to Venus, Saturn, and Mercury, which basically means like pretty much all morning into the afternoon, we're not feeling like something is working. And this is then going to see the moon conjunct the south node by kind of the mid-afternoon. And then we're going to see in the evening, the moon's going to come into Libra. Now, this entire time that the moon has been going through Virgo, remember, it's all 6 houses away from the Sun and Chiron. So we can kind of feel like as these scheduling changes or these breaks or patterns kind of happen, some of us might go, okay, well, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe I needed a break. Some of us are also going to go, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be better? What's going on? But as soon as the moon gets into Libra, there's a vibe shift. Now, it is going to be later in the evening. This is also now setting us up for what will be the full moon that is going to be in Libra around the 12th. All right. So basically, synopsis for the 10th for me is that past patterns are now coming up for us, and we are going to see some destined insights, and we are going to see where maybe we've been going through all the motions, thinking it's healthy, when in reality it's not. And like, if we need a break, we're going to take one, right? All right, so this is going to take us into the 11th, which will be Friday. And moon's in Libra, building towards that full moon, overnight into the early morning on Friday, we saw an opposition to Neptune, but most of us were dreaming. And we also see a very early morning trine to Pluto. Moon in Libra, I do feel like is going to be easier in a sense where it's relational. It is bringing up, connecting with other people. It is making plans for the weekend, going on a date. It is going to be about, connecting and confirming with our business partners, or, wanting to be with our spouses, or wanting to, schedule appointments with managers, therapists, that kind of stuff. So it's not a bad day if you have therapy on Friday. Couples therapy, if you have some kind of personal therapy, if you're going and working with I like Pisces for past life regressionists, a meditation coach or teacher. Maybe you have a hypnosis session, right? Like these things can be great because you're able to really bounce off of the Libra moon, which is trine Pluto, which can help us make change for the future. And it's working on a subconscious level. Maybe there is like surprises. I could see some people being like, oh, I'm going to surprise my partner and, I'm going to have dinner ready when they come home. Or, my kids are going to come home and I'm going to have everything set up in the living room. We're going to have a movie night kind of stuff, because this is about the pleasure that can come from hard work, dedication after working all week. How do we kick back, relax, and actually enjoy ourselves? And that's the theme over the weekend. You're going to see that Friday. You're also going to see that Saturday as well. Venus conjunct Saturn isn't very romantic, but it can be showing love and appreciation in a very kind of dignified, mature way. So it depends on how you guys decide to kind of use that. Now, on the 11th, we're going to see, other than the trines between Pluto and the moon, we're also going to see that the moon is building into a full moon. Venus is getting ready to station finally, still in conjunction to Saturn. And we see Mercury on the north node in a trine to Mars. So just so you guys know, Thursday and Friday are big communication days. And it's the irony that Thursday is like not a good communication, meeting, traveling day, because you're going to be like, what's going on? But at the same time, it's meeting with the north node trining Mars. So it's like, okay, well, if something dissolved or if it's not clear, where am I listening to my gut, or where does this give me time to say, hey, I'm going to spend the day going home or organizing, or I'm going to do some emotional house cleaning, whatever. I do think that essentially that moon trine Pluto early in the day is setting us up, because it's making aspects going into what will be the full moon. It's about relational power. Who or what do we align ourselves with? What group of people, right? What networks? Who are we communicating and connecting with online? Where are we getting support and feedback from some of our closest friendships? How can it empower us? I think that's what I would focus on. I also think that this is obviously setting the stage for the full moon, because we're seeing all of these planets now that are so conjunct Saturn, but getting ready to go direct. And with the trine between these planets and Mars, it's all about emotional clarity. It's fueling emotional clarity. Mars is also trine the North Node. And, the North Node is about getting lost in the waves, resting, receiving information, reflecting, spending time alone, getting adequate sleep. Like, raise your hand if you feel like you have just been wanting to sleep this entire, last 2 weeks. I find myself, actually, sleeping well, which is kind of weird. And, even though I'm getting 7, 8, 9 hours, I wake up and I'm exhausted. This is all of the Pisces energy. This is also the trines to Mars, that if we have stuff to work through emotionally, yes, we are going to feel absolutely emotionally wiped and slimed and exhausted no matter how much sleep we get. Keep getting more. Enjoy this, because when all these planets move into Aries, it's going to be nonstop. Pretty much, I would say the second half of May on, it's just nonstop. Okay, so get the rest when you can get it. Know that Mars is really, with its trines, it's fueling emotional clarity and also going after what you want. So Friday to me kind of feels like, in a nutshell, that there is relational depth that is coming up, and we're still reassessing and reevaluating, but that depth is helping us build towards some kind of karmic commitment or karmic release. So for me, I'm yes, this is very much, now you're watching your reality, show. You're being left on a cliffhanger, and you're like, who are they going to choose? That's how Friday night feels to me. All right, so now we're going into Saturday. We wake up on Saturday. And Saturday is when we are going to have the full moon in Libra. Now, there's some stuff happening leading up to this that is rather important. Before we have the Libra full moon, we're going to see both the moon trine Jupiter. Okay, so this is Saturday now in the later morning. Moon trine Jupiter is great for, you want to go somewhere with your friends, you want to get out of town for a staycation for a night or so, you want to plan a road trip, you want to send an email that you're hopefully going to get a response to or from, you want to reach out to somebody and say, hey, do you want to go and do something? Hey, I've been thinking about you, or I've been reflecting on, the riff we've had. I just wanted to let you know I'm sorry, like that kind of stuff. Like Saturday is a good, like, I apologize, like let's make up kind of day up until the full moon, in my opinion. We are going to also see on Saturday that with the moon trine Jupiter, we're feeling more optimistic, like we're feeling more positive, like we're noticing that there's a shift in the air. It doesn't feel like that major drama that sometimes comes with like a full moon in Libra or Aries, where there's always like this dynamic between, who am I versus who are we? We will also see happening this day, the sun is going to come into conjunction with Chiron. Now that's baked into the full moon, which is at 23. But the sun conjunct Chiron is really symbolic of, okay, we need to heal something within ourselves, right? We need to, and it's 22, so it's long-standing issues. Out in the world, power and authority figures, military figures, older men, generals, people who are leaders. That Sun Chiron conjunction could symbolize, somebody's kind of getting, drug, in the news for some of their aggressive, kind of arrogant behavior. This could also mean that, we are tapping into the need to heal ourselves, our own personal power, that there can be joy, there can be creativity, there can be also a lot of personal fulfillment with acknowledging where we've been wrong and like where maybe we have been super egocentric or unable to get outside of ourselves. So that awareness with the Sun Chiron connection is so important for the full moon in Libra, because it's going to be really showing us, are we tending to our wounds? Are we taking care of them? Are we allowing them to fester and be like these long-standing things where we become rigid and kind of blocked off? And there in turn, the full moon in Libra is, we actually have some polarity from another person. We have some distance. Actually, something is breaking off or fading away. Venus will go direct right after the full moon. So if we look at this right here, the full moon's going to be at 23 degrees. So it's going to be Saturday evening where I live. 23. If you guys haven't seen my full moon in Libra video, check it out. Once again, also, I apologize. There's like 2 signs. I forgot your guys' cards. Mercury retrograde moment. I put them in the comments, so they are there. But go and check that video out, because I talk about how this is a storyline that goes back to the fall of 2024 when we had a solar eclipse in Libra, and it was at 11-ish degrees. 10, 11 degrees. We also had, Venus in Scorpio at an 11. The name of the game with that solar eclipse was change is going to happen in relationships. How do we navigate it? How does it shift us? How do we deal with some of the heavy stuff? And this is now the full moon that was from that seeded moment. So many things have been changing and kind of breaking down because it was a south moon eclipse in relationships, that now we're realizing and recognizing like what role we personally play in that and which direction this is going to go. So Sun conjuncts Chiron, we become aware of the wound. Then we're going to have the full moon at 23, which is like a Uranian degree. It's where the wheels fall off and suddenly something accelerates. So are we going to accelerate into partnership, diplomacy, working together, or are we going to go our separate ways? Then you're going to see that this full moon creates a yod. Okay, so, oops, not to there. Creates a yod between Uranus and Taurus, Saturn, Venus in Pisces, and the moon, right? So this is when we have the moon or a planet in conjunct 2 sides. Basically, it means this is very, very significant. Look at where Libra is in your chart. Wherever that full moon is, that's going to be a pretty significant moment of needing to find balance to be able to reconcile some of the Venus retrograde stuff, and also how that's going to be impacting us emotionally in terms of our resources. I feel like this particular full moon says changes in relationships are going to have huge karmic and financial effects. Some people are going to align with the right people, and it's going to feel like right person, right time. Oh my God, my nervous system has calmed down. Like, this is what I've been looking for. Now I feel safe. I feel secure. Boom, we're locked in. Other people are going to be like, okay, this relationship is not working anymore, and it doesn't matter how financially we are entangled. It doesn't matter how long we've worked together. It doesn't matter how much it benefits me. If it's just not working, if the relationship is not working, or if I don't feel supported, I don't know how I'm going to figure it out, but I'm going to get out of the relationship, even though it's going to cost me, even though it'll cost me my job, my reputation. It'll cost me my, my investments, my savings, whatever. Some people are going to go, screw it. I don't care. It's not worth it. And also this is going to be big for consumers, because I feel like this is going to be some consumers going, I could not support this person, this brand, this CEO, this whatever, now that some of this stuff is coming to the surface. I am expecting, because Venus will go direct also, that there's going to probably be some big news revolving around government spending, government, Capricorn, Saturn, Venus going direct, news. This is going to be happening at 24 and 25 degrees, things that have been held back or that they have been clarifying or kind of preparing. And the legal implications of this, Libra, right? And the financial implications. So there is just so much stuff going on with this full moon. My goodness. Well, I think that the moon trine Jupiter is good for harmony in the morning. Obviously Sun Chiron can heal wounds or make us very much aware of our wounds and where things are not working. And then that yod that we're seeing, it really signals some kind of fated shift in relationship and resources. So the full moon on Saturday night is about balancing some of these revelations. And, for some of us, it's going to be a make or break. But for others, there is this spark that is a destined change. Right after the moon, and this will be later in the evening, but right after the moon, within like an hour or two, Venus goes direct. So the Venus retrograde's over Saturday night. So some of those defining relationship moments are coming up. And then we are going to see late at night, the moon is going to then square Mars. There could be some relationship drama happening, I think, for some people Saturday night, just my opinion. And the moon square Mars is definitely very kind of like combative, especially when it comes to the past, home, or living situations. Like, wouldn't be having a house party on Saturday night, right? Do people still have those anymore? I wouldn't be having one. I wouldn't, if you're out late at night, I would probably not be doing that. I'd be coming back a little bit earlier, because you're going to see with moon square Mars, there's going to be people fighting. There's going to be people speeding. There's definitely going to be some conflicts with people in the air. And then Venus going direct conjunct Saturn is going to be, okay, we've been dealing with this long enough, like boom. And then the full moon's going to come in. So be mindful of what's going on with relational stuff on Saturday. And this is going to take us into Sunday, which of course, right after such an action-packed Saturday, so many relational, home, domestic things going on, we wake up and then, the moon's going to go into Scorpio. So up until about 9 a.m. Central Time, so that's going to be 7 a.m. Pacific and about 10 a.m. Eastern, the moon's still in Libra. So you don't really feel the effects of the Libra moon kind of wind down until Sunday morning. But like I said, the week wraps up in a very intense way, because moon going through Scorpio is definitely going to be bringing up, intense emotions. Oh, the change, the aftermath, the psychological, the emotional kinds of shifts. This is a transit that's about finding out secrets and working through fears and intimacy issues and joint finance issues and tax-related matters. The irony that right before we're getting ready to go into when the taxes are due here, at least here in the United States, the moon's in Scorpio, and a lot of people are like I could see a lot of people scrambling to be like, I got to get this in order. Anyway, probably Sunday, what you're going to just want to do is still be feeling like you're bouncing back from what has been a very active full moon. We will see something else that's going to happen also is that when the moon goes into Scorpio, it will be playing off of Pluto, which obviously is about change, power, dynamics, things that are really deep, stuff that can be hidden and kind of beneath the surface, as well as Mars. Well, we just saw the moon come into a square with Mars. Now we see the moon come into a square with Pluto. So for some of you guys, you're going to be like, what the heck is going on Sunday morning? Why are we still in this full moon intensity? Why are people communicating in such a nasty manner? Moon square Pluto at a 3, okay? I guess the positive is that, Mars being the co-ruler and Mars, still in a trine with Mercury by degree is like a lot of people are learning that we can communicate and we can be more sensitive and aware, but we can also be a little bit more firm. Mercury, North Node, Saturn, Venus, this is the way it's got to be. I know you don't want this, but I want peace. And here's my boundary. Versus some people are going to be hissing, like a possum. They're not going to be down to kind of play very nicely Sunday morning. So watch with that Scorpio moon shift. I do think that, we're going to feel some of the impacts of what is going to be post full moon fallout, obviously intensified feelings. And now Mars is within about 5 degrees of the opposition to Pluto. So this is where I say the week ends in an intense fashion, not only because the moon goes into Scorpio and is squaring Pluto, but also simultaneously it's bringing up this opposition point. So if you guys backtrack, you think about what was happening in early November of 2024, Mars and Pluto, when they opposed, Pluto was in Capricorn, rest in peace, bye. Mars was in Cancer in its pre-shadow, and they were both at 29. So very similar transits as what we saw at the beginning of November. We had another opposition that was at the very end of 2024. So it was like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. We see a Mars-Pluto opposition there too. This will be the final one. It's not going to perfect until closer to the end of April. But man, some of you guys who are like ruled, I would say Scorpio risings, I would say Aquarius risings, I would say Aries risings, I would say Cancer risings. You guys are starting to feel the intensity brewing. And I feel like this is a fight where there's been this sense of duking it out. You've seen two things duking it out in your chart. In the Aquaria area of your chart, the future could it be scary, but can it be good changes? And then also where the collective is freaking out about the future versus Mars, which will be in Leo soon, the individual, right? The hero. It's like, no, I am going to stand up and do something. So this is like the final, standoff that you're going to see. Once again, not till later in April, but you're going to feel that because the moon is in Scorpio and it's picking up on that opposition. My recommendation, lead into the trine. Mercury North Node in Pisces, trine Mars and Cancer can be very kind of like, I feel like this is the best thing to do. Let's try to be more emotionally kind of in tune, sensitive. Let's maybe even if we can't work together, where can we kind of do what's best for everybody involved emotionally, right? I don't know. Let me know how your guys' Sunday goes. And then we're also going to see with that opposition, that there is power struggles, feeling of deep transformation that's going to be happening in these houses. It is hinting at what will be this brewing tension that's going to be coming in the not so distant future. So Sunday to me is all about emotional clashes that are going to give us the opportunity to deepen and feel our way into how we can navigate change emotionally, spiritually, and also domestically. Or it's going to be about some pretty gnarly clashes revolving around finances, revolving around change, issues with friendships, issues with money, borrowing, lending, loans, all of that stuff can be kind of coming up as well. So the moon's going to continue to keep going through Scorpio. It comes out of the square, thankfully, in the evening hours, so it doesn't feel as intense. And the week finishes up with finally Mercury and Venus direct. Now, remember, everything's still dancing with Saturn in the North Node. So as we're kind of getting into this next week, can you enjoy and have a much stronger, bond and have more pleasure and I think more of like a refined sense of security in the Pisces area of your chart? Absolutely. But there still is this heaviness in the air. Saturn and Venus is some heavy stuff. The North Node is as well. And a lot of people, I think, are still processing a lot of things emotionally. So be kind to yourselves, be kind to other people out there, and know that by the time we get to next week, things are really going to start picking up. So I'm excited to see what happens. Definitely check out my videos, obviously, throughout the week, especially anything in regards to the lunations, anything in regards to some of like the bigger transits. I'll probably do a review actually and a recap of Mars going into Leo and what that looks like. It's going to take some time to get Mars out of shadow still, Venus as well. So by the time we're getting into about mid-May, you guys are going to start to feel the shifts. All right. So with that being said, I personally would really like to show you guys where Venus going direct is taking place for you. So you have something to look forward to, by the end of this week, you can start kind of moving forward in this area. Remember, Venus is exalted in Pisces. The North Node is where we're supposed to go. Saturn is about both sacrifice, but also commitment. So now you have, I think, more of an awareness of just exactly what you love, what you need to do to take better care of something where you could better nurture relationships, and that some things are worth working for, okay? All right, so I'm going to do this for the 12 rising signs. As you guys know, I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. So I really recommend to make the most of my predictions. You guys listen to your Western whole sign rising sign, okay? You can listen to your moon sign. You can listen to also your sun sign. But when astrologers use the whole sign predictions, we're looking at it from zodiacal order. So actually, you want to know exactly, well, which house is Venus in? Where am I going to get that sweetness? Where is the love going to come in? Where are things going to start to get better, right? Special shout out, obviously, to my Taurus and my Libra risings. This is your planetary ruler, so this is going to be a bigger transit. And anybody who's got any planets 22 to, I would say, really maybe even 29 degrees of Pisces, this is a big turning point for you as well. All right, so we're going to start with my Aries and Aries risings. What's going on, Aries? Well, as you know, the Venus retrograde, it started in your first house and it's dipped back into your 12th house. Venus rules things like your pleasure, your money, your security. It also rules your relationships, your business partnerships, your marriages. It can be also about your marketplace and just others in general. So as Venus went through your sign and then it dipped back into the 12th, really what's been kind of coming up for you is that there has been kind of like hidden desires. Maybe there has been spiritual connections, and these have been resurfacing throughout the Mercury-Venus retrograde. I do feel like now if you have been lost in terms of what you want or what you value in relationships, now you can have more clarity. It can feel like a very spiritual, a very divine time for you. I also feel like with Venus being conjunct Saturn, if you have felt like there's blockages in your love life, now it can start to heal. Now things can actually start to feel a little bit more comfortable. And obviously, Venus will come back into your sign. So it's also going to be good for relationships then. 12th house, hidden places, healing centers, your dreams, your bedroom, your subconscious, foreign lands, anything like that is kind of going on. It can also be about your relationships that you have with people that can be foreigners. So investment opportunities, romantic relationships, business partnerships, all of those things can be kind of taking place there as well. I really recommend taking time to meditate, taking time to just reflect a little bit and maybe even journal or just reflect on some of these subconscious shifts that have been going on in how you view relationships, how you view your financial situation or your values. And I do think that it is possible for some of you guys that, there could be like a little secret like love connection going on, or there could be a creative project that's gaining some kind of traction. Keep in mind the connection with Saturn is demanding patience. You're not rushing through these things. Pay attention to your dreams. Likely there will be symbols or omens that will come through for you. Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? Well, Venus retrograde is over this week. So I think that that's going to be wonderful. And obviously you are Venus. Venus rules your chart. It's also directly connected to your 6th house of health, habits, as well as your coworkers, your routine, your pets. So Venus started its retrograde in your 12th, where it was a little confused, it was a little isolated and lonely, and now it's moved back into your 11th house, which is very much connected to your friendships or your networks or your audience. It's also really much aligned with your dreams and your soul's path in the sign of Pisces. Now, Venus has been dancing with Saturn, which basically means it can be work connections, collaborations. It can be some major change for a company you're working at. It could mean that there is some rearrangement going on with your social life. But I do feel like this is really about, collaborating with like-minded souls. This is about committing to a cause or a dream or a purpose. It could be health related, business related. It could also be in connection to some kind of group that you follow or that you belong to. I predict that there can definitely be a karmic bond that strengthens within certain friendships. And definitely I feel like this is a positive thing. It's also really good for your career, and it can definitely be reshaping your future. So look forward to that. Look forward to maybe also reconnecting with old friends or making time in your schedule for health or habits. Group classes and also networking opportunities are really favored for you this week. Good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gemini? Also, shout out to you too, because you have Mercury going direct this week. So I feel like with Mercury and Venus both kind of dancing in your 10th house, it's been a lot of rethinking, renegotiating, reassessing your career. So the 10th house, this retrograde, it actually started in the 11th, and it was something about your goals changing and then going into the 10th house and really thinking, okay, if these are my goals or this is what I'm hoping to achieve, what do I have to change about my relationship to my public image or my career? So there has been, I think, throughout the Mercury and the Venus retrograde for you, this very compassionate glow up. And maybe it's about reconnecting with people you've worked with in the past and, smoothing out issues. Maybe it's been about really feeling like you're finding a job that is more your dream job or your purpose. Maybe a lot of changes going on when it comes to, authority figures and managers or people at the top of your business. Or maybe you've been thinking about going in a different direction. Venus has been about things that are hidden and that you do not see. It's also been about your 5th house, which can be about creativity, children, self-expression, or dating. So if you've been going back and forth asking yourself, do I love my job? Do I really want to do this forever? Or would I rather go in a more creative direction, something that feels more fun, expressive? Maybe you're getting ready to make a big, public statement, announcement, or launch a business. Certainly these things can go a little bit more smoothly now by the end of the week when both of these planets are direct. But for Venus to be side by side with Mercury can also tell me there's been a lot of you working on projects behind the scenes and getting ready to show the world what you have actually created. So my tip for you guys is just really showcase your creativity. This is all about really, letting your authenticity lead. And I'm predicting that a faded opportunity might be emerging for some of you Geminis that's really tied to some of your past efforts. And likely it's going to have a very lasting impact. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's up, Cancer? You're going to be experiencing Venus going direct in the sign of Pisces in your natal 9th house. Obviously, this is happening in a sister water sign, and you're going to see Venus and Saturn kind of harmonizing with Mars in your sign. So I do think that my water signs are going to like this transit quite a bit. As you know, the retrograde started in Aries and it went back into your 9th house, which is all about your beliefs. It's about travel, legal matters. It can also be about education, and just your philosophy about life in a nutshell. Maybe long distance traveling, publishing stuff can come up here as well. So I really feel like the retrograde has been about saying, do I need to travel more, work less? Do I need to go back to school and get a certification? Do I need to go and check in with somebody legally about some work drama, that kind of stuff? And it's been really expanding your spiritual depth here as well. Venus is connected to your goals, your allies, your friendships. It also has a direct connection to past situations, home, family, and domestic relationships. So I feel like this can be about you reassessing what is the purpose of, my friendships in my life. What am I learning about where I live or where I travel? And Venus has been dancing with Saturn, which is the ruler of your 7th house. So certainly if you have a mentor, a teacher, a guru, a lawyer, a doctor, maybe somebody who's advising you about how to market your home or how to publish a book, that has been a really important kind of ally throughout this process. I do feel like that this has been about exploring new philosophies, traveling with intention, but some of you guys have felt like you've had stalls or delays actually traveling, or that, you haven't been able to go where you want to go yet, or you've been trying to get the funds, or you've been trying to relocate, go back to school, whatever. So now with Venus going direct, it's going to be easier for you to do that. I do predict that some of you might experience either a teacher or, a new guru or somebody who pops in that can kind of help you. This can also be about reconnecting with a relationship or a family member at a distance. And if you're planning a trip, it's likely that everything's kind of coming together now. And you might feel like this journey is bringing some kind of karmic clarity for you in some way and helping you really solidify your path. Look to the trines to Mars in your sign to help. I feel like it's going to be also somebody who might give you some really solid golden advice about just how to get a business started, how to launch something that might be your own creative thing. And meditation teachers, yoga teachers, gurus, all these people can be incredibly helpful now in really opening up to the bigger picture of your life. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Venus going direct in the sign of Pisces in your natal 8th house. All right, so for you guys, this has been an interesting retrograde. It started in the 9th house of travel, education, and your philosophies, and it dipped into the 8th house, which is more about intimacy, shared resources, obviously deepening your emotional connection to other people, but also things like taxes, inheritance, dealing with insurance or, dealing with refunds of some sorts. So there can be a lot of back and forth, or maybe there's been delays in money coming in, or maybe there's been a lot of changes with your partner's money. Maybe it's just been about a kind of like spiritual renewal and how you look at intimacy or relationships, endings, even with all these planets in the 8th house. Now, Venus is connected to your 10th house of career and reputation. It also has a direct connection to your 3rd house of communication, contracts, siblings, travel, all that fun stuff. So I would imagine there's been a lot of rethinking your public image, or renegotiating something professionally, or looking over a contract, or kind of crunching numbers and trying to figure out whether or not, the job that you're in is cutting it, if you need to invest more, if you need to be taking out loans, paying things off, that kind of stuff. Really, it's been about, intimacy, I think, and where you can go deeper with other people or where you've been afraid to go. So it's all about now facing your fears. It's all about vulnerability. It's also realizing that trust is required for you to build wealth. You have to trust somebody or something else. That could be a financial system. That could be a financial advisor. That can be your spouse, your business partner. And that, there are some very karmic things that are setting up here in regards to money coming your way. A Saturn rules other people, and the 8th house is other people's wealth. So if you've been back and forth on an estate matter or an inheritance matter, you can actually see things kind of turning around now. Same thing with tax problems. And I'm predicting for some of you guys that a soulmate bond or a financial shift is going to be resolving some of your old debt. Good luck, Leo. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. What's up, Virgo? You're going to be experiencing Venus going direct in the sign of Pisces. And I'm sure you guys are like, thank God. It's been retrograde also with Mercury. So how are my Virgo risings doing? You guys have had all of these Pisces kind of transits in your opposite sign. Not easy, huh? I remember last year when I had the North Node going through my 7th house and I had the eclipses and the retrogrades, I was like, what is going on? This is horrendous. But you're almost done. So you're almost done. Obviously, the 7th house is all about getting outside of ourselves. So it's been a lot of like your therapist, your clients, your marketplace, your relationships with other people, spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. So I think that there's been a back and forth here, especially since Mercury, your ruler, has been retrograde as well. Now this week it will go direct. So you're going to be able to kind of make up your mind about where you're going, or if you feel like somebody's been playing games with your heart, now you're going to kind of see which direction this is going to go in. Venus started her retrograde in the 8th house, and that was about, more depth, opportunity for vulnerability, also self-love, right? Aries, 8th house, the changes in the way that you love yourself, and vulnerability with other people. Venus is directly connected to your money, your resources. So where you're investing, also, what you're paying off, what you owe, things in regards to taxes. It's also connected to the 9th house. So it can be, for some of you guys, relating to school loans. It can also be connecting to money that you've racked up on credit cards, traveling, or things kind of connecting to teaching or education. So with that retrograde in the 8th into the 7th, there's a lot of talking to other people about this. And this could be like debt consolidation, talking to your partner about how you get stuff paid off, how much you owe, what you want to invest in, talking to clients about that stuff as well. So, really, I think the 7th house is a mirror, right? This is the energy of Libra in the 7th house. It's a mirror. So it's been really about setting boundaries with love because Saturn has been there, and this kind of karmic dance between giving and receiving. And it's not always financial or physical. It could be emotionally how you're showing up, whether or not you're feeling like you're getting the same in exchange. So I feel like for you guys this week, I'm kind of predicting that a karmic partnership either commits or releases. And a lot of this is guided by fate. I do feel like, other people and the love department is very much kind of connected to both Cancer as well as Mercury. So like the full moon, could definitely be giving you some insight as to where they stand in a relationship. It can feel like it's make or break on their part, as well as the Mercury retrograde. And I think a lot of communication has been very difficult with relationships with other people for you guys, but it's now going to start to kind of clear up. It sounds kind of like ominous. It's really not. I think that, some of you guys have seen a partnership go, at the beginning of this process, kind of back in January or February. And now you're questioning whether or not it's really done, if they're going to come back. Some of you guys have met other people. Some of you guys have also realized that you've been in a relationship for a period of time and that this has just been a renewal phase. whatever happens is meant to happen now with these planets going direct in the conjunction to Venus. And I want to remind you guys that for the next 2 years, the lunar eclipses in Pisces will be in your 7th house. They will trine Jupiter. I do feel like there is really good things for Virgo risings on the horizon when it comes to relationships. So whether you're single or partnered, you have a lot to look forward to. Good luck. All right, we've got Libra and Libra rising. What's up, Libra? All right, so this is significant for you as well as Taurus, as Venus rules your chart. So Venus is connected to you, your appearance, your body, your health. Venus started her retrograde in Aries and dipped into your 6th house of health and habits. So Venus is connecting to joint resources, money, psychological changes, as well as your physical body. So, a lot of the Venus retrograde stuff for you guys has been about reassessing relationships. And it seems pretty appropriate prior to Neptune going into your 7th house, prior to Saturn going into your 7th house pretty soon, where there is going to be like this reset or this restart that's going to be happening in relationships. The full moon's in your sign this week. And you've got to watch your emotions. You got to watch what's coming up for you, what major conclusions or completions are kind of taking form since the solar eclipse we had in your sign last fall. With that being ruled by Venus, Venus going direct, Venus conjunct Saturn, a lot of this is going to be about realistically, do you have your home in order, right? And that can be literally or figuratively. Like, is your house in order? Is it organized? Is it clean? Do you have a home office you need to take care of? And I say that because of the connection with Saturn. Saturn can be about family. It can be about ends of situations. It can be about happiness, children, your health even. So putting it all together, a full moon in your 1st house and Venus going direct in your 6th is saying that something is going to be improved when it comes to your health or your emotions or your daily routine. I think with Saturn conjunct Venus, a lot of Libra risings have been saying, I've been really unhappy at my job, or I've been struggling with a health issue, or, my schedule has been a mess, or I've been having relationship issues. Now these things can kind of start to turn around, but a lot of it's going to be about what work are you willing to do? Are you willing to change jobs or schedules? Will you go to the doctor? Will you work with a trainer or a dietitian? Will you get, a pet trainer? Will you decide that you're going to make a radical kind of lifestyle change? All of these things can definitely happen now, Libra. I feel like this is where work and wellness definitely take on a spiritual meaning, that there is purpose behind some of the changes you're making. Definitely infuse your daily routines with creativity and care. I think that's been my biggest lesson with the Venus retrograde. I also feel like a lot of it has been about paying better attention to emotional health. And like, even if you're going through all the motions, if you're not paying attention to your emotions, the impact that can actually have on you like down the road. I am predicting for some of you guys that a job or health shift really aligns with your soul's purpose. And you kind of feel like you slip right into the job, the purpose, the routine, the right gym, the right doctor's office where you're supposed to be. And you're going to be feeling better and you're going to be feeling a lot more productive. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's up, Scorpio? You are experiencing Venus going direct in Pisces, and I feel like you're a sign that's really going to like this. I have to be honest, I have like a lot of Scorpio rising friends in my life. And I've been hearing all of these little messages and stuff from them being like, oh my God, I met somebody. After not meeting anybody for so long, I met someone, I really like them, they like me, it's weird. Welcome to Venus going direct in your 5th house. Obviously, you guys know that the Venus retrograde started in your 6th and it has been retrograde back into your 5th house. So, the storyline is something like Venus in the 6th, I am trying to meet love maybe in at a gym or maybe at work, or I'm trying to kind of get to know somebody outside of a workspace. I'm trying to make more time in my schedule to connect with people or to have hobbies or whatever, 5th house things. And as Venus went from the 6th house of work to the 5th house of play, you've made more time for play. You've been more willing to say, hey, I'm going to get back into that old hobby. I'm going to, go to the bar. I'm going to meet someone. I'm going to, start dating again. I'm going to spend more time with my kids or my partner. And it's been about romanticizing life and really enjoying the sweeter things. Yes, it's been dancing with Saturn. Yes, it's been dancing with Neptune, but it's about really doing the things that are going to bring you the most joy and the most happiness. And so I feel like this whole retrograde period has been really kind of tying together what you haven't been seeing in Libra is kind of connection to your 12th, simultaneously with, or what you're letting go of what you're bringing in, right? The connection to the 7th. So there's been one person leaving your life, another person coming in. I do feel like romance, art, and joy really feel divinely kind of inspired right now, especially with Venus going direct. Yes, there can be shocks and surprises this week, Scorpio. You are going to have a full moon that's going to be in your 12th house, and it's going to be brought on by Venus in the 5th. So you will unexpectedly meet somebody. You could have some kind of ending of one karmic relationship cycle and the beginning of another. You could feel that renewal come in. There could be some kind of surprise that can be happening for you from a partner, something like that. So I would really focus on creating from the heart, letting love lead, being very present and romanticizing life right now. For some of you guys, I'm predicting there could be a very passionate fling. There could be a project that blooms into something that's long lasting with the connection with Saturn. Partners of destiny coming into your life as the 7th house rules marriage and commitment. The 5th house is true love. Some of you guys will meet a younger person. You'll meet them at a bar or at a club. You could meet them at an art gallery or something at night. So if you're kind of getting out and about, you're trying to meet somebody, watch for some of these planets going direct and the opportunity for Cupid to kind of strike. Good luck. We got Sag and Sag rising. What's up, Sag? You're going to have Venus going direct in Pisces in your natal 4th house. And this is an interesting one for you. I always say this every time, but everything's been like squaring all of the points in your chart. So you've had like a grand mutable cross happening if you've got some Sag, later degree Sag placements. So, Venus started her retrograde in your 5th house of joy, creativity, children, love affairs, hobbies, and it's kind of dipped into your 4th house, which quite frankly is very private. I feel for you guys. I have the same kind of setup. I have Venus, Saturn, like Neptune in my 4th house, and that can be incredibly complex. But Venus is directly tied to your health habits, your routines, work. It can be also fitness related. It can be about finding time for pleasure. It can also be kind of connected to working out. It can be about pets. As well as friends and anything in regards to your goals and your allies. So we're taking the connection of those 2 houses and we're putting it back into the 4th and we're putting it direct. Okay, so Sag, over the last couple months, what's been changing with your home life, right? The 4th house is your home and your roots, and it's been about reconnecting to your soul's purpose. Maybe it's also about connecting to the past, where you've lived, right? You're moving back into a place you've lived, the same city, the same home, back home. Maybe you have been renovating or making a change in a home. Maybe there's been a move process that felt like it's taken months to kind of finally pack, move, unpack, get settled, and now you're finally putting the finishing touches on your space. Venus can be about hanging art and getting things in order. Also, it can be about having more peace and pleasure in your home base. So usually women will come and visit. So some of you guys might notice, hey, mom's coming to stay with me, older sister's coming to stay with me, I'm going home to take care of grandma. Those kinds of things can kind of play out as well. I do think that this is about nurturing your family ties and also building an inner sanctuary. Like your home is your temple. It's your little Zendan. You have to make sure that you have all of the things that are going to make you feel the most comfortable. You're investing in things that you feel like are quality with Venus conjunct Saturn, things that it can be quality time, quality appliances, quality materials in your kitchen, and really focusing on anything that is going to make you feel solid and secure. And for some of this, it's also sacrifice. What are you sacrificing? What are you willing to give up to have a nicer home? Or what are you willing to give up maybe to share a space with somebody else so you can be still sorting through some of that stuff? I do think that if you have been going through a move or an emotional breakthrough, now you're on the kind of tail end of it. And there's definitely a lot of opportunities here to be healing some kind of ancestral wound. A couple of years ago when I had Venus go retrograde in my 4th house, right over my Saturn and my Neptune, was like a really weird time in my life. It was like my favorite grandma, had passed. I was having a weird relationship with my mom. I had just gotten married, and then I was like, still getting settled into my new home with my husband, and it was just a really weird time. But that Venus retrograde was a time where, I was able to go home and actually, go and get ashes from all of my relatives. It sounds kind of morbid. Sorry, I'm a Scorpio, but it was like my dog, my uncle, my grandparents, and go and have this beautiful memorial and memorialize, sending that family off and starting my new life. So it was a really interesting time. So if you guys have been, waiting for someone or something to kind of come back, give you closure, if you want to be honoring someone or something, that might be something that you see with that kind of connection to Saturn. Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Venus going direct in the sign of Pisces. And I think really the next 3 signs are going to like this because you guys are having Venus come and meet you again. You guys are all dealing with Saturn. So as a Capricorn rising, Saturn rules your chart. It's about you. It's also directly connected to your money, your resources. So in a nutshell, the Venus retrograde started in the 4th and it's going back into the 3rd. So there's been a lot of reassessing home, family, the past. And now it's, well, what do I think about it? How do I communicate that? How do I move? How do I talk to my sibling? How do I deal with these neighbors? That kind of stuff. And really I think the insight that you've gotten throughout this transit has been about like communication and realizing that communication carries some kind of spiritual weight, right? I mean, it's Saturn, Neptune stuff. So there is this sense of, finding the words throughout the last couple of weeks. Venus is directly connected to your children, your creative partners, your love affairs. It's also going to be about your happiness, your joy, and your responsibility, your purpose, your career. So if you're like a Capricorn rising and you're a writer, right, it's like a great time to be like, okay, my blog is coming online. I'm going to be posting more. I'm going to be sharing more of my artwork. I am going to be putting myself out there. But it could also be important contracts and negotiations. It could be important conversations with relatives. It could also be finally making a decision on, do I buy the car? Am I buying the laptop, the gadget, that kind of stuff. So speak your truth, but do so with compassion, especially with Venus conjunct Saturn. I feel like, if you have been trying to get more recognition for your work, you might be getting more positive feedback. People have probably been saying, wow, you did a great job, or this looks beautiful, or this is wonderful. You can improve your communication with your children and romantic partners as well. And I feel like for many of you guys, there is a fated conversation that is coming, and it could be a document, an email, a meeting, finding out that, hey, actually, you know what? Some money is coming my way, or somebody is coming to visit me, or somebody is, sending me a care package, something that is going to be providing you with a little bit of love, and also a little bit of recognition. Definitely be open to this and seeing also where, new ideas and learning how to communicate in a much more peaceful manner is definitely shifting your perspective. I think this transit with Venus retrograde in your 3rd is you're realizing you're going to get further with honey than you are with vinegar, right? Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you, Capricorn rising. What is coming back to you? I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you have a neighbor that moves, closer to you that you used to live near before, or a sibling? Did you make up your mind about a car that you're going to buy? Was something that was missing, suddenly found? That kind of stuff. Let me know. All right, we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. What's up, Aquarius? You're going to have Venus going direct in the sign of Pisces, and that'll be taking place in your 2nd house of personal resources. Themes also connecting to money, self-esteem, security, right? Possessions. And you're going to like this because Venus is coming into conjunction with Saturn, which is your traditional chart ruler. It's also about things that are hidden. So you might find out about some hidden money, some unexpected resources, a hidden talent, or something that you thought was gone is now found. Now, when this Venus retrograde began, it started in your 3rd house. So there was this reassessment of communication in the mind. And it's also been about, well, do I spend on the car? Do I travel? Do I take this course? Can I make any money writing? Like that kind of stuff. And Venus is about your home and your living situation, family, property. It's also connected to the 9th house of law, legality, people further away, in-laws. It can also be about legal matters connecting to estate. So there's a lot of, do I have to, pay for this? Is it my responsibility? Can I sell the house? Should we be relocating? That stuff can come up for some of you guys as well. But the 2nd house has really been about money, and it's about, self-worth, and also this is somehow karmically tying into some of your lessons. You would think with Saturn in the 2nd house that, you would be like, oh, we're having financial issues. And trust me, I've been through a Saturn 2nd house transit. I know how kind of tight the purse strings get. But for a lot of you guys, I think with the North Node there in Mercury retrograde, you've been more conservative. You've been more cautious and careful. It pays to wait rather than buy something as soon as it comes out, or it pays to save until a rainy day. And then suddenly, you have the opportunity to say, yes, I'm going to move. I'm going to book the trip. I'm going to buy the car. You are only buying things that should feel valuable to you right now, or only investing time or energy into things that feel valuable right now. And I think a lot of this period has been about really listening to your intuition and using your intuition to really gauge what do you value, and also this is about how to make more money, how to have breakthroughs with your self-esteem. I do believe that for Aquarius risings, a financial turning point is coming, and it's reflecting really because of an evolution of your values. If Venus is about home and family or property or the bigger picture or something that can come from far away, you might find out, hey, I've got an in-law that, wants to send us some money or wants to help us with a down payment. Or, maybe you decided, well, I don't have to go on the expensive trip. I'd rather put the money, towards a down payment on a car, or, maybe buying something that you need for your home. So it does pay to be conservative, but Venus conjunct Saturn says, I will have the money and the resources if I need it. But most importantly, I know my worth, and that's why it's showing up. Good luck to my Aquarius risings. And finally, we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. What's up, Pisces? I bet that to some extent you guys have had a little bit of some tumbles, maybe with some of the retrogrades in your sign. Certainly Mercury and Venus going direct in your sign this week is like great. I've heard from a lot of Pisces risings. It's been interesting to watch the last couple of months, because I think that there has been really this kind of glow up and this sense of awareness that's like, no, I'm worth more, right? Mercury retrograde in your first house, debating whether or not you want to work with people or partner with people or, be in relationships. Not communicating very well because you need your space. And then Venus retrograde is about kind of pouring into your own cup. So you factor that in with last month's eclipse, and like, boy, oh boy, a lot of you guys are realizing you can actually make it on your own. You might actually thrive being without certain people in your life. Now, the Venus retrograde started in Aries in your second house, where there has been a reassessment of, I think, more your self-esteem, maybe your personal style, maybe it's been about your financial situation, but that retrograde going back into your first house has been more about your body, your appearance, how you look. Certainly the first house is your identity, and it's really about your identity radiating with some kind of soulful clarity throughout these retrograde periods. Venus is about how you communicate. It's also about how you get around town. So think of like transportation, or how you write, how you share, you express yourself. Maybe some of you guys have taken a bit of a hiatus from social media. Maybe some of you guys have gone back to school. And there's also been some real changes in yourself psychologically because of Venus's connection to the 8th. If you guys haven't been journaling, you should be. You can still do that because you can get a lot of clarity. And even looking at who you were 6 months ago compared to who you are today, the last couple of months will be really telling as to what realizations you've kind of woken up to and just exactly what you need in comparison to other people. This has been all about embracing your authentic self. So I think that if you do that, the right things will follow, the right jobs, the right partnerships, the right everything. And maybe you've been a little indecisive about a move or a learning or even a purchase, but I think that now you're realizing that less is more and that you don't need as many things. You just need to be more kind of safe and secure within yourself. And you've been embracing, like I said, your authentic self. So I think with this finale this week, with Mercury and Venus going direct in your sign, there is this personal reinvention that has happened. And it's really aligning with your destiny and where you are going. Remember, all of this is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is your co-ruler in the 4th. So it's about being like, okay, I got out of the relationship. I made the job change. I finally have kind of gotten things straight. Now I think I know where I'm going. And some of you guys might be packing your bags and moving, going back home, traveling, relocating, and feeling like you're going to be just fine on your own. Good luck, Pisces. Especially curious to see what manifests for you guys. Well, there you guys have it. That is the week at a glance. Thank you guys so much for your support. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like this, and consider sharing it on your socials. Equally, follow me at BTB Astro. I'm super active on there. That is where I'm always posting stuff that's kind of going on in the cosmos and in the world. I'd love to hear from you guys. I will be back and doing live astrology readings this Friday, so you guys can catch me Friday. We're going to be doing those readings just in time for the full moon in Libra. Come and hang out, get a reading. I'll be here at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific. 6 o'clock p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, and it's 7 p.m. Eastern. So, sorry, this is still Mercury retrograde as I'm filming this, but I'm here usually 6 o'clock Central every Friday. You want to see more about me and my work, you can find me at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Equally, click the links in the description below if you want to see everything I have to offer. We've got a book list down there. We've got webinars, calendars, courses, and much, much more. And I hope you guys enjoy your week. I hope you enjoy that beautiful full moon. I'm ready for the karmic surprises and the conclusions of these retrogrades. I'll see you all very soon. You guys take care.